Red Letter Media's Phantom Menace review is the most disappointing series of videos I've ever watched. Though it's not hard to believe that Mike and Jay, two armchair directors, would misrepresent everything the Phantom Menace has to offer. They even tried to make it seem like George Lucas surrounded himself with yes men during the filming of the movie.
I guess at this point, who's gonna question George or tell him what to do?
I take it you say action after we roll camera?
I'll say action.
You don't.
Sometimes I forget.
People forget.
If I forget to say action or cut, just step in and say action and cut.
He controls every aspect of the movie. He probably got rid of those people that questioned him creatively a long time ago. Number 1, the characters.
Mike tells us every story needs a
protagonist,
but then they don't always need a protagonist.
The audience really needs someone who's like a normal person like them to guide them through the story. Now this of course doesn't apply to every movie. Now I need to explain that I don't think that all movies should be the same or conform to the same kind of structure.
This makes his point absolutely pointless, because I could just turn this around on him and say that this applies to the prequels. But I don't think he would agree, because clearly he doesn't consider George Lucas as a director. He probably considers him a hack.
George Lucas kind of seems like an obsessive compulsive disorder crazy person.
Yeah, the overall movie.
So what you're saying is George Lucas has a limited mental focus, a limited intelligence.
But
I recently watched THX 1138 for the first time. I had seen his student film version of that when I was in college, and I don't know, I was not horribly impressed. I think he had a lot of good talent, actor-wise.
Sure.
And those performances in THX were really great, and I don't know, I just wasn't impressed. And I did not like American Graffiti.
Well, there you go.
I was just horribly bored during American Graffiti, and it felt very flat and very it didn't have character to it. It just felt like a George Lucas directed film. Okay, we have to make these scenes work. We have to. So I propose he's a fraud from the get-go.
From the very beginning, huh?
The luckiest man in show business other than Ringo Starr.
So unless they're the Coen brothers, David Lynch, Paul Thomas Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, Lars von Trier, David Cronenberg, Gus Van Sant, Quentin Tarantino, John Waters, Wes Anderson, Sam Peckinpah, Terry Gilliam, Martin Scorsese, Werner Herzog, or Jim Jarmusch, you really shouldn't stray away too far from this kind of formula.
Even though we have established that movies don't always have to follow this structure, Mike disqualifies George Lucas because he doesn't believe George Lucas is a real director. He doesn't believe George Lucas has any intent behind any of the things he puts in his movies.
I want you to tell me who the main character of the Phantom Menace was. I can tell you it's not the Jedi. They were just on some kind of boring mission that they didn't really care about. Plus they're fucking boring themselves.
What happens to one of you will affect the other. You must understand this.
I would say Mike is probably suffering from what he would describe as
a limited mental focus, a limited intelligence.
Since it seems like every time he brings up a scene, it's boring to him.
Wasn't Queen Amidala, because she was some foreign queen. The movie was certainly not really about specifically either.
I don't know what Queen Amidala being a foreign queen has to do with anything, but I would say she is the protagonist of the movie, since she is one of the first characters you see, and the entire plot is centered around her plight. But I would also argue that there isn't really a protagonist. This movie is filmed like a documentary. It's a story about everyone. It's a story about what's happening in the movie.
You might be thinking that it's Anakin, because he was like a slave and saved the day at the end by accidentally blowing up the starship. But the audience doesn't meet Anakin until 45 minutes into the movie. And then the things that are happening around him are pretty much out of his control or understanding. If a protagonist has no concept of what's going on or what's at stake, then there's no real tension or drama.
And the movie isn't really about Anakin. Anakin, we all know, is going to get out of this movie alive. We all know Obi-Wan's going to get out of this movie okay.
Before the movie opened, I was really excited to hear that Scottish actor Ewan MacDonald was going to be playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought that was a great choice, and he'd be perfect as the lead of this movie. But he wasn't really. He just sat on the ship and complains a lot.
Mike can put up silly graphics all he wants, but it won't prove his point. When watching the movies, I never thought the characters were lacking in any way. They always matched what the characters were supposed to be. Obi-Wan is a Padawan. He's not supposed to be making any headstrong decisions. Anakin is just a kid, and he's kind of just stumbling into these situations. And Queen Amidala is constantly trying to take the lead, but Qui-Gon Jinn is the real leader, and he's actually taking the lead in solving all the problems.
But let's ask some real people about the Star Wars characters and see what they say. I posed this simple challenge to them. Describe the following Star Wars character without saying what they looked like, what kind of costume they wore, or what their profession or role in the movie was. Describe this character to your friends like they ain't never seen Star Wars.
So this goes pretty much how you would expect it to go with the group of yes men of Mike's own. So Mike goes ahead and says original trilogy characters first, just so you can get like a big reaction. So you have them all list off a bunch of traits that these characters had. And then Mike says a prequel trilogy character, and they have no words.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
He is stoic.
I don't remember that character.
Okay, is Liam Neeson with the beard?
Oh, yes.
Well, he has a beard. Qui-Gon Jinn, and he was...
Queen Amidala.
That is going to be fucking impossible because she doesn't have a character. She is, she's Natalie Portman.
Yeah, just kind of
Well, I can't say she's a queen. I was gonna say she's a queen.
normal, I guess. Just kind of normal.
Makeup would be a description. I was gonna describe the makeup.
Describe Queen Amidala's character. Monotone.
She
looks a lot like Keira Knightley.
So,
she is... This is funny, by the way. I get it.
And there's like this guy in this green jacket, and he's kind of like blowing it up for like no reason at all. He's like laughing his ass off.
I can't answer that, you know it.
So one of the characters he said was Qui-Gon Jinn, and I immediately thought wise, kind of opportunistic, and he's very spiritual, grounded in like the Force. You could see him meditating in the movie. He's opportunistic when he saves Jar Jar. He's opportunistic when he's trying to scam Watto, and he also gets Anakin in that scam too by cheating in a dice roll. Like all the other characters, he's always trying to do the right thing. Another character he brought up was Queen Amidala, and I thought she was also a good-natured person. She was always trying to do a good thing, but she was also headstrong. She was also trying to take lead in situations where she didn't really have any insight in it. She was very impatient. You could see that whenever she's talking to Qui-Gon. You can also see her good nature whenever she's talking to Jar Jar or Anakin. Overall, it's not looking too good for the next 7 videos. I didn't come across any points that were really valid. It just seems like Mike is like a fanboy who is mad that George Lucas ruined his childhood.
Continued in part 2.